liberty, and justice for all. And once again, let us remain standing and think about our troops serving our country. As we have many of them here, former troops, veterans that are in the audience with us tonight. Thank you for your service. And also let us think about Ronaldo Gentile, that is one of our co-workers' father, who has recently passed away. Thank you. May I have a seat? Yeah, she's here. It's a very special evening here tonight. First of all, let me just say the workshop meeting will be held March 31st at 7, and the regular village board meeting will be held Monday, April 6th at 7 p.m. So as I was saying, it's a very special night. We have a very special guest here with us today. So she's Constance Frazier, the Commissioner of Human Rights. And I'll be opening with a statement, and then she will be making a short presentation. So the unbridled hatred in and around the community and among and between many in leadership positions throughout our country and in our hometown has been disturbing and destructive. I have been in discussion with members of my staff that at an alarming uptick in hatred has been particularly observed to me over the past 2 years. In response, I've asked my team to try to do things that show, in the midst of this trend, there is a place called Suffern, New York, where things are different. And with purpose, as a community, we can show that there truly is a better way than hatred. The Suffern Police Department has a record that is a model for any municipality, seeking ways that a community can positively impact the lives of others. The Community Foundation has stepped forward, working to coordinate efforts to improve our environment and assist those in need. Our CSEA selflessly helps in many community efforts, and most of that goes unnoticed. The village clerk's office has been quietly collecting items that are in desperate need by those who are homeless, and they make sure that there is food left over, and they make sure that the food left over from community events finds its way, with the support of community clergy, to those who are hungry. The Recreation Department diligently develops programs that helps residents and our seniors stay healthy in both body and mind. The Suffern Fire Department, throughout the years, schedules youth and outreach programs for the benefit of our community. These efforts are ways the Village of Suffern has stepped forward to make change happen, but it still hasn't been enough. Still, unbridled hatred in and around our community and among and between some in leadership positions continues its disturbing and destructive trend. Social media continues to be an unfettered platform to spew hateful rhetoric and unchecked ideologies. Observing this disturbing trend, I have sought out the help of Constance Frazier, who is with us this evening. Constance Frazier, who is a content expert in many areas, serves as the Commissioner of Human Rights for Rockland County. With her assistance, I'm working to take the necessary steps to address the problems of hatred head-on. With the support of Dr. Francis, her staff, as well as village employees and community-minded individuals in this unique and special place called Suffern, a place we all call home. I am instituting a program that emphasizes kindness and respect. Kindness and respect to all. Why kindness and respect? Kindness and respect are two simple words that make an enormous positive impact on our community and those around us. Kindness and respect. Two simple words that, if missing from our vocabulary in word or in deed, lead to disturbingly destructive behaviors that our community has observed, behaviors that will continue to leave a destructive path if not properly addressed. With those words, kindness and respect, as the forefront of how we as a community should live our lives for the sake of our children and our children's children. It is with great honor that we have with us this evening Dr. Constance Frazier, and Dr. Frazier represents a light shining in the darkness, leading the way for a better tomorrow in Rockland County, not only here in the village, but in the village, in the towns, and in the counties that surround us. I am truly honored to be able to have Dr. Frazier here with us this evening and thank her for sharing her enormous insight and wisdom with the Village of Suffern. Dr. Frazier, please.
After that introduction, I think I should go home. Let me say good evening to everyone, especially the taxpayers. I am a resident of Suffern as well, so I share that concern with you. Thank you, Mayor Markunas, and thank you, Amy, for your kindness and for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and meet with me. I've lived in Suffern for almost 18 years. This is the first time I've ever been invited to a meeting, but thank you. I appreciate it. I'm only going to take a few minutes of your time. We might have an opportunity for Q&A. If we don't, guess what? I have cards, and I'm going to give them to the head of the committee. While we may be of different faiths, we have a strong sense of faith, family, and community. We hold the values of freedom and human rights very high, and I think that those are all a part of a very strong quilt that binds us together. That's very deep. Robert Mendez is also very deep, and if you have an opportunity to read some of his works. I just want to share briefly what we do at Human Rights. Before I assumed this role, I was a retired superintendent of schools, minding my business, getting my hair done, until the county exec called. But I always believe that God puts you where he wants you to be when he wants you to be there. It has nothing to do with you. And it took me a while to kind of get that. But when you think about Rockland County, this is a beautiful place to live. It's a fabulous place to raise your kids. I grew up here, went to NIAC schools, was on the NIAC Board of Ed for some time, and the first woman of color. And I used to come to Suffern when I was a teenager, and always thought it was an interesting place. You see this auditorium you're sitting in? This is an archive. It's historical. Don't ever tear it down. The vision of the Rockland County Commission on Human Rights is to provide fair, open, and expeditious forums for the resolution of unlawful matters of discrimination which occur in Rockland County. That sounds like a lot, but what we do in a nutshell is our vision is to root out anytime you have discrimination in fair housing and also in employment. Now, some of you are sitting in the audience saying, that doesn't happen in Rockland. Yes, it does. And it's been very quiet, and I'm not usually a quiet person, but I try to be purposeful and prudent in all that is done. Our mission is a very simple mission, but I want to share it with you. The Rockland County Commission on Human Rights is to foster mutual respect and understanding among all ages, races, creed, color, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, identity or expression, military status, sex, disability, predisposing genetic characteristics, familiar status, marital status, and domestic violence, victim status groups in the community to receive complaints of alleged discrimination and seek to reduce discrimination through conference conciliation. That's what we tried to do. We have a staff of approximately, I say 3. We just hired someone else that started today. It's not the number or the volume, it's the quality of what you do that's going to make a significant difference. And I truly believe that some of the incidents that have occurred in Rockland are precipitated based on ignorance and lack of education. And as a former educator, I cannot tell you how important it is for people to be educated. We all come with biases, we all have stereotypes, we can't help it. Some are innate, some are learned behavior, but be that as it may, what is happening now in Rockland is people are moving away from each other. It's like the Great Divide. What we're trying to do is bring them together in a diverse community. You all are onto something in Suffern. You may not even be aware of it, but your mayor is onto something. When you have harmony and people live together, it reduces that racial tension and the prejudice and discrimination, because we tend to dislike that which we don't understand. I know I'm that way. Sometimes you'll say out of the corner of your mouth on the side, you know, I don't like her. Well, you don't know anything about her. And the true of culture is the same thing. Culture as a way of life. When you don't understand another's culture, you tend to dislike it. You might not say anything about it, you might not verbalize it, but it exists and it's there. Guess what? All roads lead to Suffern. That's the precursor for the campaign that your mayor is launching to focus on love and not hate in this village. And I think he's on to something along with Amy, and when they spoke to me about it, I said, I think you have a fabulous idea. But ideas don't mean anything unless you can apply them, because we're fabulous when it comes to identifying problems. We're fabulous when it comes to ideas, but the real key is how do you go about implementing? You can't really do anything unless you have a plan, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And the mayor doesn't plan to fail, and neither does Amy. He is very, very full of spontaneity and very vocal. So I know when he says he wants to do something, he thinks about it, and then he decides, okay, this is what we need, and this is what we are going to do, because it's going to better the village. Why is the campaign important? It's important because there's so much information regarding race, racism, color, creed, violence, vandalism, and you know what that does? It breeds mistrust, it breeds chaos, and guess what? It causes fear. Because it goes back to what I initially said. We tend to dislike that which we don't understand. My mom used to tell me the truth will set you free. Guess what? Some people don't want to hear the truth. But it will set you free, because you won't be so chaotic in your brain. Before an idea can be put on paper, you have to think about it in between your two burritos. Who's involved in this campaign? It'll involve all of Suffern, and the residents, young and old, because you need to have everybody. That's the diversity and the beauty about Suffern. You have all kinds of people over here, people that you all don't even know anything about. You get in your car sometime and drive all around, and you'll see the different kinds of people, the different cultures of people that are represented in this community. What is this about? He alluded to social media. Social media, aside from what most people think, can be used in a very positive way. And I'm not talking about the negative noise on Facebook. How many of you are on Facebook? That's all right, you can put your hand up. I won't tell anybody. Okay. I know that you use it in a positive way. Unfortunately, some people, no matter what their age, tend to use social media because they want to have a lot of noise. Years ago, my father used to say, because I'm from Harlem, if you had a beef with somebody, take them outside, take care of the beef, and go back in, you finish with it. Social media allows people who are cowards, who don't have the guts in many cases, especially if they're negative, to get on and to say anything that they want to say that they won't say to you. You know, that causes a lot of hate. It causes anger. And people don't even realize it. And it's part of our culture. I'm not saying it's going to go away. It's not. I think careful regulation needs to occur at the federal level, state and local level, but first at the federal level. And I think I'm about to write Mark Zuckerberg a letter myself. One of the things that I think is important that the mayor is doing, and I love him. I don't know him a long time, but I love him because he's just a lovable person. And he believes that love transcends hate. Now, when he sees you, he greets you, he always hugs you. Even in spite of the virus that's going around. He talks about 3 points, a 3-point thank you, and that's something that you'll hear more about later on. We need to take this to businesses. You also need to take it into the public schools in Suffern, and you need to take it to your senior citizen center down the street. You need to take it to the synagogues. You need to take it to the mosque, and you need to take it into the churches. And we got plenty of those in Suffern. We got one of each, two of each, or three of each. So we shouldn't have any problem with that. I have flyers that I'm going to share with you tonight. I'm going to give them to you. One of the things that we don't want to do is say we want to communicate with people. We want to talk to them about hate. We want to talk to them about racism. If you want to talk to people and you want to communicate with them, you need to do it verbally and in writing. If you don't speak the language, whatever you put out, if it's Arabic, you need to make sure that it's written in Arabic. If it's English, put it out in English. If it's not Italian, I don't do Italian. But I do Spanish and French Creole. And if somebody else mentions another language that we need to communicate with people like Yiddish, we will be happy to do that. I have a contract with the county, and I was telling them, I said, you know, when I get ready to do something, I want all these languages. And they're looking at me like I'm nuts. So I went over to procurement, and I said, listen, I need to have these languages so that I can translate this information. He said, why do you need to do that? I said, because I'm trying to communicate with the people in the Muslim community. So whatever I'm sending them, it needs to be written in Arabic. Everybody doesn't read English. And I think you get my point. One of the things that I want to really stress is that, remember, we're more alike than we are unalike. We really are. I haven't seen green blood. All of us got red blood. It's 4 different blood types. You may not have the same one that I have, but the thing is you have blood running through your veins. All roads eventually will lead to suffering. You're cordially invited to come and meet with myself and county representatives, legislators, supervisors. They can't escape me because I meet with them and I call them and they say, okay, we'll meet with you. But the interesting thing is, I felt after December 28th, that horrific act that occurred in our community, that we need to do something about it. It's a shame that it took just that long for that to occur, but the act itself, to try to hurt someone, to try to kill someone, to me, is not who we are. And it was somebody that came from someplace else to our community to wreak that havoc. You go to a synagogue, I don't care if you go to anybody's house, you go to a rabbi's house, and you try to kill people, that's hatred. My grandmother used to say the devil is busy. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be collaborating very collectively in this campaign. Don't worry, he will reach out to you. Everybody will be a part of it. On March 25th, write that down in your episodic memory, there will be a human rights symposium at Rockland Community College in the Cultural Arts Center. And don't worry, there'll be plenty of seats. It holds 506 people. This is going to be a little different than anything that you've ever attended. It won't be the same as what they had. The 5-town supervisors meeting. Anybody go to that? Anybody in here go?
Yes.
Okay, you were there? Aren't you special? In any event, this workshop will focus on 5 major, symposium will focus on 5 major workshops. And it will include the following: fact versus myth. Who has the nerve to have a workshop, fact versus myth? I do, because that's the misinformation that needs to be cleaned up. And we have it for about 7 different ethnic groups. It's a myth. Some people say some people have 10 eyes. You know darn well people don't have 10 eyes. And there's a myth that's closely affiliated with the Hasidic, ultra-Orthodox faith, that nobody is married. That's not true. But that's the kind of stuff that's out there that we're trying to take down, to dispel the myth that a lot of hate comes from that. So we need to tell the truth, and if anything I have anything to do with, it will be done with truth, fidelity, and a sense of humility, because that's what it's about. Immigration, fair housing, employment, and education. And we have some powerful people that will be conducting the workshops. Very well organized, but I want you to come get information. Information is power. The more information you have about your campaign that Mayor Markunas is about ready to launch, the more effective it will be. And if you do it right, guess what? You'll be a model for Rockland County. We need all the help we can get right now. We need all the prayers we can get, because we have to dispel some of the misinformation that breeds hate, and most likely fear comes from that. I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to me for a couple of minutes. We have meetings once a month. You're more than welcome to come. I did not bring the schedule tonight. I apologize. But what I will do is I gave it to Mayor Markunas, and you'll have cards there if you like. feel free to call my office at any time. I guarantee you I'm not always there because I'm out in the field, but I will make it my business to call you back. I've reached out to folks up in Curious Joel and Brooklyn, all over the greater Manhattan area. It's not just Rockland County. People are watching us because the reputation that we now have is not necessarily a good one, but it's not fair and it's not honest. So what we're trying to do from a humanitarian point of view is turn that around, take that trajectory and the noise and try to do that with faith, honesty, integrity, and the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, CF. That was a great presentation, and that's what we hope to achieve here in the village, and to work with all in the community, all of the residents, all of the business owners, all of the schools, all of the employees, and develop that mutual respect towards everyone, for everyone. And that is our goal. And as CF has said, that we will be launching this campaign shortly, and it will be remarkable. So thank you once again, CF, for taking your time out. Thank you. Okay, next we have the presentation for, we're moving around the agenda, I'm sorry. Berard Associates, the CPAs, to do a quick review of the audit of financial statements for the Village of Suffern for fiscal year ending May 31, 2019. Do you have the, no. Do you have the copies?
I've got 4 copies, so maybe you can. I want to
Bring the copy.
say good evening and thank you for inviting Berard Associates to this meeting tonight. We are your auditors. My name is Donnelly Berard. I am a partner in the firm. This is Clarissa Standick. We're both CPAs, and she is the manager of the actual audit here for the Suffern Village. We were excited to get this job because we are local Suffern as well. Our firm is just 2 buildings down. We have about 16 accountants there. And both Clarissa and I happen to actually be residents of Suffern as well, so we hold you in our hearts. Tonight we'll be presenting the audit of the May 31st, 2019 audit. In addition to the regular fiscal audit, what we also do for you is we also do the Justice Court audit, and we're just pleased to say that we had no findings when we did the Justice Court audit. We also do a management letter where we would issue any findings that we might have, and we're also pleased to say we had one minor finding. We just stuck something in there because we felt we needed something in there. So congratulations that you do a great job on the internal controls here. And we also wanted to thank the staff for all the help that they gave us in helping us with the audit performance.
So, as she said, my name's Clarissa. Can you guys all hear me, everyone? Okay. I'm just going to briefly walk through how the financial statements work, and then I'm going to turn it over to Donnelly to go over your actual results for the year specific to the village. But the first thing I want to say is we do issue an opinion, which I'll draw you to that page where it is, but it's an unqualified opinion, which sounds bad, but it's actually very good. It's what you want. So the audit was clean, a clean opinion. And then another thing to consider for anyone looking at these financials, they're very large, but just remember there's 2 styles of presentation. The first style is your more corporate GAAP look, which adds on your long-term assets and your long-term liabilities, and it kind of does as if you were to close doors today. And then there's the second presentation, which is where you would likely focus more on, which is more of a quasi-cash basis, and that's more in a year-to-year silo. And that's where we compare budgets to actuals and all that. So that's 2 sets of presentations. That's why this report is so large. And that's just to be compliant with government accounting. So I'm going to walk you through generally how this works. As you go flip through the first few pages, you're going to hit page 7, which is our opinion, where we say how that there was no findings, that your internal controls were sound, and then you have your management discussion and analysis that follows on pages 12 to 18. Now, I think this report is available online. If anyone else has questions, they all have copies. That's where management discusses what they would like to say about actuals versus budget and just how the year went as well. And then you have your basic statements, which is pages 19 to 32. And that is where we present both forms, your long-term look and your current look, basically. And then the notes take up a huge part. That's pages 33 to 36. And that's where we explain what is it making up your long-term debt, how things are getting financed, your capital assets. And then the back schedules is every fund statement individually at a more detailed level. We're not going to go into that today. That's, if you have specific questions, we can, but we're essentially just presenting the basics. So I'm going to start you off on page 19, if you could all turn to page 19. So this is basically a balance sheet. If anyone owns their own business, this is where you're looking at where you landed at the end of the year. If you look at the very top at your assets, you come down to about a third of the page down to total assets. What we are adding in, where it says capital assets, you have total assets of $23 million. If you look at the 2 lines above that, those are your long-term assets being added back. That is your property, plant, and equipment, and capital projects, and construction in progress. Those are all the things you own. So everything else is short-term. This is your long-term assets being added in. And if you follow this line down another third of the way down, 2/3 down, you'll see you have total liabilities of $67 million. That is because you added in about $65 million of long-term liabilities. Those long-term liabilities is bonds. You have about $8 million in bonds, and other post-employment benefits, which is $49 million or so, and then other smaller things like your LoSAP, compensated absences, other smaller long-term debt items. And then what happens is you come to the very end, the bottom, where it says negative $28 million is your net position. That is negative, but that is common. That is, do not be alarmed. I don't know any town or village that doesn't have a negative net position when we look at it on this basis, because this is, if you were to close your doors today, what you'd have to pay off long-term retirement obligations. So without that, page 20, given all that, if you look on page 20, this is sort of your income statement on that same basis, and you look at the very bottom where you have $28 million, you go up about 3 more lines, you actually had a positive change in net position anyways, so you actually are slightly improving this number as well. I'm going to go ahead and flip it to Donnelly. She's going to run through how you guys did on the fund statement basis, which is more probably what you're interested in.
For a clarification for a question on the post-employment benefits, could you just elaborate a little bit more on post-employment benefits and the reasoning behind the $49 million?
So this is if you were to pay for all the people that are currently working and when they retire, if you're paying their health care benefits at the very end. So this is considering not just who's currently retired, but also going to retire as you continue through operations. So it's a forward-focused look.
Okay.
It's actually a requirement that is actuarially generated, where they take your employee census of retirees and current employees and statistically spread out over everybody's lifetime how much it would cost you today if you needed to pay for all those future, your health benefits and retirement benefits that you have in place today.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to take you to page 29. Page 29 is, and 30, which actually kind of pair together if you line them up. These are your major funds. You have 3 major funds. You have your general fund, your water fund, and your sewer fund. And the comparison here is your budget to actual, just to take a look at this. So the first fund is your main fund, which is your general fund. And if we look at this starting from the top, your revenues, your total revenues, your actual revenues for the year were $15,647,000. Your final budget was $15,160,000, so you actually did better by about $487,000, and some of that's from some miscellaneous revenues. You can look at the difference column there to see where that's from. The expenditures, if you drop down another 2/3 of the way, your total expenses were $13,528,000. Your budget was $14,466. Your variance here is you went over by $437,000. The bulk of that was that retro pay for the police is the biggest cause of that. The excess deficiencies over revenue, I'm actually going to drop you down to that net change in fund balance about 5 lines down because there's some transfers between funds that have an effect. You actually had a positive change in the general fund of $880,000 this year. You had actually budgeted a loss of $570, so you actually did quite well this year. The same analysis on the water fund, if you look at the next fund, you had actual of $1,993,000, your budgeted was $207,000, so you're pretty much right on target. The expenses were $1,593,000 compared to $2,054,000, so you actually were under budget there by $459,000. If you go down to the bottom, third line up, you actually had a positive profit in the water fund of $317,000. So another good year for that particular fund. The sewer fund, if we look at that, the revenues were $2,074,000, the expenses were $1,005,000, but you had to transfer over to the general fund $554,000, which is the repayment of the related debt that applies to the sewer fund. And you actually had a profit here of a break even just about at $19,000. The caution with the sewer fund is you have been running a deficit here, so that helped that a little bit. You still have $267,000 deficit on the sewer fund. Michael is working on a plan to gradually reduce that, which is really what you want to do. You can't do that so much over time without raising sewer rates, but he does have a plan in place to work that down. I'm going to flip you now to the related balance sheet here, which is on page 21 and 22. Remember, these are your fund bases, and the ones, because they related to your budget, this is what the public's really concerned with. You budgeted a certain amount, and how did you match up to it? These are the balance sheet here without all that additional other retirement type benefits included in it. So the general fund, you'll see here we have assets of $6,908,000, of which, it's kind of split pretty evenly between cash investments, and there's also $1.9 million that's due from this, that's from the sewer fund. And the liabilities were $946,000. The difference between the two, second line from the bottom, is your net fund balance is $5,962,000. So that looks very positive when you first look at it, which is about $6 million fund balance. However, if you really analyze this, when we look at it, $1.9 million of that is that receivable that's not spendable. We can't spend that for anything else, so it's not a fund balance we can use. And then we have all these some restricted funds in here for law, dare, fire, and debt service, as well as some committed funds for Suffern Day and some assigned funds. Really, the number that's important when we look at this is this $2,381,000. That's your entire available fund balance. As a rule, the state doesn't have a specific rule that says what it should be, but what they do say is that at a minimum, you should have at least 2 months worth of reserves available in your fund balance that's unspent. This number happens to actually be almost exactly 2 months worth. The thing with that, though, is that the only thing you have is the 2 months worth of actual cash reserves to help you with immediate cash flow needs and things that you have. What you could also consider is, if you could continue to build up the reserves, you could use some of that money. What other governmental units do is they save more reserves for things like paying off debt. You have some high rate ERS retirement loans that could be used to pay down. If you could accumulate some funds and save a lot of money in interest, as well as potentially other bond refinancing. Also, if you wanted to save for capital projects, right now, if you want to do a capital project, you have to go out and get debt for it. But if you could build up some reserve funds, you could partially pay for it with some actual general fund money instead of going out and getting additional debt. So it's common to have a capital project plan where you kind of squirrel away like you do at home when you have projects that you want to do. And also consider that the better this reserve number is, the better your rating is going to be. And the better your rating is, the better when you do go out for additional debt, the lower the interest rate will be. And Moody's, they tend to like at least 2.5 months minimum reserves here. So you're still a little shy, according to Moody's ratings, on these reserves. You do have a reserve plan. Michael, you can work with Michael on how these reserves and what kind of monies you want to have set aside. But I just thought it would be important to understand that what you have is great, but you should also consider the future of the village and saving actually more reserves in the coming years. The water fund, if we look at that, the net reserve here is a positive $792,000, and we already talked about that. Sewer fund has the negative $267 that we'll be working on. I just didn't want to go through a lot of it. If you want more details, it's 102 pages here to really wade your way through. If you have any questions, for sure, you can contact us or Michael or the mayor.
And these are available already on the website, right?
Yeah. Any questions? Are you good?
Does the board have any questions? Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have the continuation of the public hearing to amend Chapter 254 to Vehicle and Traffic. Do I have a motion to continue the public hearing? Trustee Barone. Second, Trustee Alpert. Mr. Magrino, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Board. As you recall last time, this was just, I don't want to say massive, but it's a big change or proposed change. So I know that Amy has been working on it. I believe Trustee Megan-Corrigan's been working on it. So I think, it's really not ready to be certainly acted upon tonight. The purpose of tonight was to see if any further members of the public had any comment from the board, and then to continue the hearing. Again, we need to really sit down and go over it so that we make sure everything is the way the
Yes.
board wants it to be, and to make sure it's right. It's certainly not ready now, but
Okay.
really, I believe Amy has more information on that.
That we've been working diligently on updating Chapter 254 in its entirety. The team that's been working on it has consisted of our parking enforcement aide, our police department, our fire department, DPW, in particular Joe Hunt, and his staff have been looking at it, Justice Court, the clerk's office, the parking department, many calls from the public, and of course Rob Magrino. And we've been looking at it from the different perspectives to take a look at what currently exists, what does the code say that needs to be changed, and make those adjustments so that Chapter 254 will provide a safe flow of traffic and an enforceable code that will make the parking and traffic conditions in our central business district in particular, as well as the West Ward, improved. I'm going to turn it over to Jo Corrigan. She's been working with the different departments as well, and she's been really getting into the particular details of the safety aspects, and I'll let her make those comments.
So I was able to sit with Fire Chief, and we went through street by street, and we also identified a couple of other streets that perhaps we should add to the list, sorry. But the top priority with that conversation was us getting ambulances and also fire trucks down a street, as well as where the wires are compared to where the houses are, and if they crisscross, how do we sort of work along those lines? So there's a lot more work to get done. Unfortunately, Clark's my next one. And I've been talking to Joe. He's actually keeping a list and letting me know what's going on. So we have to sort of pile all the information, and I'm hopeful by April we'll have a much better idea of what we're doing. And then I think the whole group needs to sit down and go over it so that everybody's on the same page and has time to digest it. There's a lot of streets on it.
Thank you, Joe.
Is there anyone here, thank you, Joe. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on any concerns that they may have with the parking within the Village of Suffern?
So, yeah, we'd ask that the public hearing be continued to,
Okay, so I have a motion to continue the public hearing till a date certain of Monday, April 6th at 7:05.
Motion.
Trustee Alpert,
Second.
second Trustee Corrigan. All right. Motion to close the hearing. Trustee Barone,
Second.
okay. All in favor, I'm sorry. Aye.
Aye.
That's the same one, right?
Yes, we're going to
Yeah.
continue.
That's the same one. I think that's it, Mr. Magrino. Thank you. Next public hearing, I'd like to have a motion to open a public hearing clarifying Chapter 244, 46A grant of exemption. Do I have a motion to open a public hearing?
Motion.
Trustee Girard, do I have a second? Trustee Corrigan. So on February 20th, 2018, 2 years ago, the Village of Suffern Board of Trustees adopted a local law, number 3 of 2018, amending the real property tax law of the state of New York to increase the exemption for veterans' alternative exemption amount. So it's a timeline that you have to follow from 2 years ago. Also on February 20th, 2018, the Board of Trustees adopted local law 4 of 2018, establishing a real property exemption for Cold War veterans. This action was taken to recognize and show gratitude to our brave New York State veterans and to thank them for their commitment and sacrifice. The valuable credits and exemptions enacted in February of 2018 by the Village of Suffern Board of Trustees have provided a financial boost to our veterans and their families. The local law presented this evening for adoption amends Local Law 4 of 2018 to clarify that the grant of exemptions noted in Chapter 244-46A clearly defines that the qualifying residential real property from taxation will be in the amount of 15% of the assessed value of such property in an amount not to exceed $12,000. When Local Law 4 of 2018 was written, it was written in such a manner as to provide a qualifying resident's real property from taxation in the amount of either 12 or 15%. I am proud to move forward to amend the Local Law 4 of 2018, clarifying that the exempt amount is clearly 15%. So what happened was that the board in the local law adopted either 12 or 15%, so it wasn't clear. The town also did the same local law. So right now, what we're asking, or what I'm presenting here this evening is to make it clear and to amend the local law to reflect 15%. As you know, we can never begin to repay the brave and selfish men and women who have served our country and our military for their dedication and sacrifice to our country, state, and nation. But these exemptions and credits are a form of appreciation for their role in protecting these great freedoms we have. So is there anyone from the public that would like to come up and speak in regards to this amendment? Please come up, state your name and address.
Good evening, Frank Hagan, 61 Washington, no, Frank Hagan, 10 Venery Court, Suffern. Just kidding. Good evening, Board. I would just ask that you consider doing it 15%. I spent myself 35 years in the military. I'm not bragging, I'm not condescending. I'm just saying we're worth it. So I urge you to vote for 15% for all the veterans. Half of them are sitting in the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan, and thank you for your service. Is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak? Come on up. Does the board have any input for the amendment? At this time, I'd like to close the public comment. I have a motion to close the public comment. Motion. Trustee Barone, Trustee Corrigan, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I have the resolution in front of me, adopting local law 4 of 2020, amending chapter 24446, grant exemption to clarify the real property tax exemption for qualifying Cold War veterans. Whereas on February 20th, 2018, the Village of Suffern Board of Trustees adopted a local law number 4, 2018, establishing a real property exemption for Cold War veterans. Whereas this action was taken to recognize and show gratitude to our brave New York State veterans and to thank them for their commitment and sacrifice. Whereas the valuable credits of exemptions enacted February 2018 by the Village of Suffern Board of Trustees has provided a financial boost to our veterans and their families. And whereas local law 4, 2018 provided a qualifying residential real property tax exemption in the amount of either 12 or 15%. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Trustees amends Chapter 24446, grant of exemptions, to define that the qualifying residential real property tax exemption will be in the amount of 15% of the assessed value of such property as follows. And the local law follows. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Trustee Barone, Trustee Corrigan, any further discussion?
Just a typo on that. It says about, it should be amount, I think, on that last sentence you read. Just want to make sure we don't do another amendment.
Oh, amount, I'm sorry. Yep. Any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And thanks to all our veterans that are here with us in the audience. Next, we will be having a public meeting on the proposed future use of the Avon Nail Enamel Property. So, public meeting to discuss the proposed future use of the Avon Nail Enamel Property and Avon Pilot Agreement. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? please come up and state your name. Oh.
My name is Patsy Wooders. I live at 19 Mansfield Place, just over here. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to take the PACE law course on land use, and I don't remember a lot of it, but the one thing that stands out in my mind was how residential properties are tax negative. We pay $1, and we want $1.27 in services, and commercial and industrial are tax positive. That land is commercial, industrial, it's not residential, and I think that I would ask the board to take that into consideration. We often hear about the heavy burden of real estate taxes, property taxes, and I think this is one of the critical factors, and I ask you to guard the tax base.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? The village has been involved since the spring of 2019 in considering the future use of the Avon Nail Enamel property. The village evaluated this property within the context of the overall future of the Village of Suffern, particularly considering the lack of parking is the critical component hindering the growth of the village and led the village board to attempt to acquire the property from Avon. Due to the village's limited available options for parking, beyond that of a costly high-rise parking facility that would need to go somewhere here in the village or in someone's backyard, and depending on the selected location, finding future options for parking must be continually considered by the village based upon the lack of available space and the significant cost to construct a high-rise parking facility. When the Avon property became available last year, the village expressed interest in acquiring the property. The village's decision to acquire the property put into motion a set of required activities that were driven by Avon's insistence that the village achieve Avon's imposed December 31st, hard and fast, not to be moved an inch deadline. The village attempted to take all required actions in light of the imposed deadline because the property would have provided a future asset to the village and would have immediately alleviated the parking crisis the village currently faces. The village acquiring the property from Avon was not to become reality. It did not become reality not due to the fault of the village, who worked diligently to meet required milestones to achieve Avon's December 31st deadline. Rather, it did not become a reality because the Suffern School Board voted against amending the pilot agreement because the village's acquisition of the property would result in a change in the taxable status of the property. Unfortunately, what the school board failed to consider was the long-term prosperity and increased potential future tax base if the village was to acquire the property for future growth. Fast forward to January, after the December 31st hard and fast deadline, Avon again approached the village to consider the sale of the property to a business who conducts warehousing and distribution operations for school supplies. When the village was approached by Avon in January, I can personally say surprised was a mild word to describe the announcement, especially considering the efforts the village took in order to achieve Avon's hard and fast December 31st deadline to enable the village to acquire a vital piece of property for its future. Nonetheless, at the request of Avon, the village has taken requested steps to consider the sale of the property, and once again, Avon has insisted that the village move at clock speed to achieve the expedient deadline set to accomplish their goal of selling the property. What this has meant for the village is, in the midst of all of these issues the village is working through, including resolving the critical appointment of village attorney, the village has been asked to review and approve a proposed modification to Avon's pilot agreement. It is important to note that prior to last year's announcement by Avon to amend the pilot, it was the village's expectation that the pilot would remain in place through May of 2025. Avon is now requesting the village, with haste, consider the continued use of the Avon Nail Enamel property as a warehouse by a new owner, albeit a warehouse that in form and substance would be different, since it will be used in support of warehousing and distribution of school supplies and not the main use of a primary Avon parcel. To achieve Avon's request, I pulled together my staff as a team to conduct what is called a due diligence. The Webster's Dictionary defines due diligence is research and analysis conducted by an entity in preparation for a business transaction, along with the care that such a reasonable entity should take in doing so. So the Village of Suffern has taken the necessary steps to evaluate this proposal within the context of the overall future of the Village of Suffern, particularly considering the lack of parking is still the critical component hindering the growth of the Village of Suffern. In order to achieve the second rush deadline imposed on the village by Avon, the village has taken steps over the past 2 months, as stated before, taking the care necessary that such a reasonable entity should take by conducting research and analysis in preparation for the business transaction. The village is conducting its due diligence by considering the continued long-term use of the Avon property as a warehouse while evaluating the village's future, particularly considering the lack of parking. Once again, it's parking is the critical component hindering the growth of the village. The following summary of steps have been taken by my staff. Treasurer Michael Janito has reviewed the overall financial considerations, which he will present this evening. Village Clerk Amy Paffenroth and I have visited both warehouse locations owned and operated by the prospective buyer, and Ms. Paffenroth will present her findings this evening also. The head of our building department, Steve Conley, also attended one of the visits and has evaluated the zoning considerations for the property's use, and he is available to answer questions this evening. The board has met on several occasions to discuss next steps in light of research conducted, and will be meeting again tonight. As a final step in the due diligence process, I've requested that the village hold a public meeting this evening to provide residents with an opportunity to hear about the research that has taken place over the past 2 months. This is what we have been doing. We've been doing our due diligence, the responsible fact-finding mission that we undertook. The public meeting was not required to take place to consider a modification to Avon's pilot agreement. However, as mayor, I felt the public meeting was absolutely required and necessary for several reasons. A public meeting took place when the Avon pilot agreement was originally considered. A public meeting took place when the village considered the opportunity to purchase the Avon property for our future growth and development. And tonight, against the wishes of Avon, a public meeting is taking place in order to provide the opportunity for residents to understand and discuss Avon's proposed pilot agreement amendments. So I thank all of you who are in attendance today. Thank Mr. Lieb Lefkowitz for welcoming me and my staff to his warehouse facilities and taking time out of his busy schedule to show us his operation. I also thank my staff for working with me expeditiously to achieve the deadline set by Avon for the village to make its determination. And we will begin the public meeting with a presentation by Mr. Michael Janito, followed by Amy Paffenroth. And following the presentation, we will continue with questions and comments by the public, which I ask to be presented in a manner consistent with the principles outlined by Dr. Constance Frazier earlier this evening. Thank you.
Good evening,
Mr.
Mayor,
Janito.
Board. The financial aspects of this are actually very simple. Avon entered into a pilot agreement, as you know, back in 2003. It was a 20-year pilot agreement. The last payment on the pilot is to be in our fiscal year of 2025. In terms of the pilot payments, Avon has always been on time with their payments. They've always made a payment. They've never missed a payment. And we don't see any aspect of them not doing that. As I understand this agreement that Avon is looking into now is that they would continue the full payment of the pilot, whether or not they sold that property. In selling the property to a taxable entity, the village would also gain the taxes that they would derive from that property, taxes being levied. So in essence, in terms of the finances of it, it's as I said, very simple. The pilot payments would continue. The village would gain financially in obtaining taxes that would otherwise not be collected under the current arrangement.
Very good. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Janito? Thank you, Mr. Janito.
Thank you.
Ms. Paffenroth.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Markunas and I visited the Muncie location first. The proposed purchaser of the Avon Nail Property is National Art and School Supplies. National Art and School Supplies has two warehouse distribution centers, one located in Muncie and the other in Rockland, New Jersey. The purchaser's intent is to consolidate these two sites into one in order to gain operational efficiency. So as I mentioned, we visited the Muncie location first. The location is a one shift per day warehouse distribution operation that has been functioning at this location for 10 years. 7 office workers typically work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 10 warehouse workers work from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Palleted materials of school supplies are stacked by a forklift operator to maximize their available space. The school supplies distributed are specialty, higher-end items such as paints and other art supplies, pens, pencils, Post-it notes, and similar office items. Orders received are packed for shipping in either shipping boxes or are wrapped in plastic for shipment at the warehouse in order to hold together the separate items which contain each order. The primary waste stream appeared to be cardboard shipping boxes, which had been broken down and stored in preparation for a contracted waste management company to dispose of them 2 times per week. On average, 6 employees park at the Muncie location, as most of their employees take mass transit with the bus line. The business receives 2 to 3 tractor trailer deliveries per week of incoming merchandise. They also have 4 to 5 trucks per day for pickup of outgoing orders using standard UPS trucks and freight carriers. Mayor Markunas and I then visited the Rahway location, which is a smaller warehouse distribution center, which has been operated for approximately 20 years as a 1 shift per day operation. 4 office and 2 warehouse employees work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. During their peak season, which is prior to the start of a new school year for approximately 2 months, the operation expands to 2 shifts, with the second shift working from 3 p.m. to 12 p.m., with an additional staff of 3 to 4 people. On the average, 4 to 5 cars park daily at this location. As this is a smaller facility, 2 to 3 UPS trucks and small shipment trucks travel between the 2 sites. The Suffern location is proposed to consolidate the 2 warehouse distribution centers into a 1 shift per day operation. Approximately 11 office workers are proposed to work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and 11 warehouse employees are proposed to work 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It is proposed that 4 to 5 standard UPS and freight trucks per day will arrive to pick up items for delivery. 2 to 3 tractor trailers per week would deliver merchandise, and a waste management truck would pick up refuse 2 times per week. Additional seasonal employees are proposed to be added in June and July for their peak season, to be added to the proposed day shift of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. During peak time, it is expected that 12 cars would be parked at the works. Suffern location. I have also been asked to speak on behalf of the Suffern Building Department. The Suffern Building Department serves as a resource to the Village of Suffern and to our community. When new businesses seek to locate to our village, Steve Connolly, the head of the building department, and his team of professionals work one-on-one with prospective business owners to help them achieve compliance with the codes of the Village of Suffern for their desired business location. When necessary, Steve and his team may need to seek the guidance of the planning board and the zoning board to help business owners streamline the approval process for their prospective businesses. Once a business joins our community, Steve and his team continue their relationship with business owners to answer questions and at times discuss changes that must be made for the business owner to maintain compliance with the codes of the village. Steve Connolly attended the site visit to the monthly location with Mayor Markunas and me, and members of the building department are available this evening if any questions arise. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment in regards to Avon? Yes.
Good evening. Once again, Seth Mandelbaum of McCullough, Goldberger, and Stout, the counsel to Avon. We have our team here this evening, including Vice President of Global Research and Development, Josie Adams, Michelle Dory, Facilities Manager, as well as the proposed purchasers, and our traffic engineer, John Collins, if there are any questions for them. Thank you again for putting us on your agenda once again this evening. We appreciate all the board's efforts and the staff efforts in reaching where we are right now in the process, which did start in earnest in April of 2019 when we first met upstairs with much of the village staff to start discussing the concept of selling off the nail enamel parcel as an underutilized asset to raise funds for Avon regarding this property. I think, we've covered many topics, we've provided a lot of information, so I won't take a lot of time, but I must take issue with a couple of the statements that you made, Mayor, and reasonable people can disagree on reasonable facts, but I think your statement regarding the 12/31/19 deadline, I think the terms of the contract of sale between Avon and the Village of Suffern were very clear. Those terms were negotiated. We've talked about this a few different times at various meetings, that a fundamental term of the business deal was that the closing was to occur by December 31st, and any necessary approvals from any of the taxing entities to amend the pilot were to be obtained by December 16th. That was not imposed by Avon. That was a negotiated, arm's length negotiation between the village and Avon for the village to purchase the property that it indicated in September or so that it was interested in purchasing.
Well, just to stand somewhat corrected is that we did also ask to extend that deadline and we were denied. So in the negotiation aspect, I would disagree. But go ahead, continue.
And the reason, other than the contract of sale, the term of which failed, was that the school board unanimously denied the request to amend the pilot because of their stated concern about the property going off the tax roll should the village become the owner of the property. And my understanding, Avon's understanding, was made clear to us that there were no circumstances under which the school board was going to approve the amendment of the pilot to sell to any entity that would be exempt from real estate tax. So I think that's important in the timeline to understand. We do appreciate the work you put in the last several months, as well as going back to last April when we first started discussing this matter. And we provided a lot of information. We appreciate the due diligence that the village has done, and we ask that you vote tonight to approve the amendments to the pilot, because you heard from Mr. Zanito, it's financially a win-win. You've seen with your own eyes what a efficient operation these gentlemen run. In fact, one of the customers is the Suffern School District. And they're simply trying to invest in your village, build your tax base, and bring a nice business to a warehouse that is already set up for a warehouse use. I would finally note with respect to parking that, as you know, Avon has been very generous with the parking on this property as well as the back parking lot for various community events, village events, and other, pretty much anyone who's asked and provided an insurance certificate has been allowed to use parking. This new use will take up some amount of that parking lot, which has about 100 spaces, but we've spoken to the purchasers about it, and they are, of course, happy to continue the relationship with the village and the various community groups that have used that parking lot to make as much parking available as they can while still operating a viable business based on the very detailed description you just heard from Ms. Paffenroth. I think that's an important point to note to the record as we see it, yet another plus to this user as opposed to perhaps a different type of user that would have a higher parking requirement and take up more of those spaces that have been available to the community. Thank you very much.
Okay. Once again, just to make clear that we can go back and forth with the statements or the negotiation of the term of the contract, but it was always considered that the deal closed before the sale to Natura, before the December 31st deadline. I'll leave it at that. Is there anyone else from the community? Yes. Please come up and state your name and address.
Catherine from 87 Sussex. You mentioned the parking. Excuse me, I have a cold. You mentioned the parking. How does it, earlier conversation we were discussing parking, how does this impact that? Do we know? Is that related? And then what are
The
hours?
impact of the local law, the amendments to the local law that
But
we're
you've been
implementing?
working so hardly. Is there any correlation to any of that, or?
Well, not necessarily. This is standalone, but once again, we always go back to parking. The parking conditions throughout the village do need to be revisited no matter what. It's not contingent upon the sale of Avon or us acquiring the property, no.
Okay, fair enough. And then if I may ask again, if it's a repeat, I apologize. What are the hours of the operation for the purchaser?
Mr. Mandelbaum?
The gentleman here will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, as stated by Ms. Paffenroth, the office workers are 9 to 5, the warehouse is 8 to 4, is that correct? 8 to 6. Excuse me? Yes, Monday through Friday.
You're welcome.
Jim Genatino, 2 Memorial Drive. I don't know how this board is going to react tonight. No idea. In the event that they decide not to take any action, how long are you willing to let this go on? Absolutely. If the ball's in your court, then if they fail to act. You go month to month, you go for another 6 months, a year. I mean, it would have been nice if they got some type of an extension when they asked.
We'll have to evaluate whether it's
Okay, that's a fair statement. Another thing is, unfortunately, I don't know who met with the school board, but had they informed the school board of 2 new projects coming in of 60 units and 60 units, that would far outweigh the taxes on this piece of property. Not to mention certain things that are in the pipeline that would at least quadruple, if not 10 times. So the village is losing because they couldn't acquire the property. And I think the school board, I don't know who spoke to the school board other than the people involved in the village, but I think they were sold the bill of goods, that they were going to take this big loss. The property taxes of $50-something thousand, with the increase, maybe they'll go up $25,000, $30,000. Put 2 residential units and possibly another residential commercial unit that could come on far outweigh what they may be.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, that for just using this year as an example in the pilot, which is year 17, the total pilot payment on the property, which will not change, is $572,000, $162,000 of which goes to the Village of Suffern. About another $369,000 goes to the school district. We're not proposing to reduce that number, which actually escalates for the last 5 years of the pilot. So that's the baseline that Mr. Genio spoke about. And then there will be whatever the town assessor assesses this property at will be additional tax on top of that. So just to be clear, $162,000 to the village for tax year 2020, plus whatever additional tax is assessed to the nail enamel parcel should Avon be permitted to sell it.
And just to be clear on that, $162,000 to the village, and in particular to the parcel that we're speaking about, would be rated at 15.8% of the $162,000 that we would be considering.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
The percentage of the taxes on that nail enamel parcel is 15.8% of the total overall taxes. I just want to make the residents aware of that. That's what we're talking. We're still keeping the full amount being made whole by $162,000.
Correct.
But if the village residents need to know that 15.8% of that pertains to the nail enamel building,
Correct.
which represents roughly $26,000.
For this year.
Right.
For that parcel, correct?
Yes.
But that.
No,
that's
it's not going to change.
But remember, that's the number that was negotiated in 2003.
Mhm.
The assessor will have the opportunity to assess it in 2020 at current market rate. So we anticipate that that real estate tax on top of that proportion amount you mentioned will well exceed what that number was that was negotiated as part of a 20-year agreement to entice Avon to stay in Suffern and build the R&D facility at that time.
Correct, and so with Mr. Giantino's analysis on how the growth of the Village of Suffern would increase if there was available parking and we were able to obtain the nail enamel building with the additional revenue derived from the new developments that are going in across the village to the school district and the village.
I just make sure I just heard correctly. So there's 2 60-unit apartment buildings that are proposed that are going to use this parking lot.
No, that's not correct. We have 2 60-unit apartments that are coming into the village that are going to drive economic development, which which will give additional tax revenue to the school district, to the village, and to the town.
Yes. So this parcel, what does this have to do with those apartment complexes?
It has to do with parking in general, overall,
So like right
in the
now-
larger scope of the village.
So for future use,
Yes,
4 apartments.
that was our plan for
So,
parking.
As a taxpayer, we are going to float a bond and pay for, until these buildings are built. So we're going to float that, pay for that parking. If you were to buy the.
Yeah, but we're not. Right now, that's off the table.
But we would
That-
have. We would have.
Yes, you definitely would have we would have had a bond,
We would have floated it for the developers, so that they could.
not for the developers. Not for the developers, no.
But do you need this parcel for those?
No, no. So, direct up here, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No.
So what's the additional parking going to be used for? Like, what do we need the additional parking for now?
We need additional parking for the growth and development of the Village of Suffern.
For what?
we're shy for economic development, for anyone that comes into the village. If you increase the tax base, if you increase the population, you need more additional parking. We're stagnant right now.
I think to answer his question, we are at a critical juncture right now with municipal parking. Parking lot B is currently oversold at 140% of its capacity. We're able to manage that capacity because not everybody parks at the same time. It's mainly a merchant parking lot in conjunction with the middle section, which is for your shoppers. Then we have our parking lot A, which is reaching capacity. Parking lot F is also oversold, but again, we're managing it. It's to the point right now where we have to, the board will have to make a decision as to how we manage the parking situation. Do we raise the rates for non-residents to try to incentivize them to move to other locations? Somehow we're going to have to try to manage the parking situation. The rail lot has a 15-year waiting list for annual parking. There is no more room to put additional people, shoppers, business owners. There's no more space in the Village of Suffern, period.
Okay. I just wanted the clarification. So thank
That's
you.
all right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Come on up and state your name and address, please.
Hi, I have a question for Avon. I believe it was a month or so ago that you, or a month or two ago, that you presented to the school board as well, correct? Have they responded with a decision yet? Yes. They've approved it? And the other entities have not yet weighed in? I thought I remembered you saying that, yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
My name is Bing May. I'm actually a Avon employee. I've been in this company for 11 and a half years now. It's interesting that the presentation earlier from Dr. Francis on all roads lead to Suffern. You know, I met my wife at Avon. We started a family here because of Avon. I volunteered many times at the soup kitchen. Spent nights in the evening with my children, watching the movies and benefiting from the community that Avon has brought me to. From hearing the due diligence process here, it seems like there's not a financial loss to the town for the Village of Suffern. And yet, as a responsible business, my father was a restaurant owner, and I was exposed to some of that, right? You have to be dynamic with your market and make sure that you can be profitable so that you can offer jobs, so that you can continue your business. As an Avon employee, I think it's responsible if Avon is not using the full property to look for alternative ways to be more profitable. I hope that I'll be here for another 10 years, 20 years, who knows? Hopefully I'll be retired, in this community. But with that background and my understanding of it, and I haven't been involved in negotiations but based on what I just heard, I would encourage that, we should consider this to move forward.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a great story. Thank you.
Good evening. Moira Hertzman, 458 Hopi Court. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the comments I just wanted to make with regard to this potential purchase, while we may have started a process of due diligence, I feel that we are not yet in a position to make a valid, comprehensive decision with regard to this type of business coming in. The whole makeup of the village has changed. We have the cross-street condominiums. We now have another potential condominium/apartment complex. Our community center is vital, and a lot of senior citizens are in and out of there on a daily basis. We hold classes 5 days a week in there. In addition, this building is right at the forefront of our village. It's not on the fringe, it's not at a back end. It is as you come into our community. It's already a heavily trafficked area. There's a lot of people that complain about the ability to navigate through the traffic signals. And I feel that we could really forever change the makeup of our community and take away from its walkability, its pretty aesthetic as you're driving in there if we have delivery trucks and UPS trucks and trucks dropping off and garbage disposals all full of plastic wrap and cardboard. And mainly the traffic, that we have to extend a due diligence period and consider traffic studies that would include additional traffic that would come from the additional communities to be built before we even said yes or no to whether this project in its entirety is of a benefit to our village.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excuse me, I think Mr. Mountainbaum, I believe another resident wants to speak.
Again, 19 Mansfield Place. I park in the village. I purchased the land on which I park, and I pay taxes on it. I'm curious to know about the need for parking. I know that the website says all roads lead to Suffern, but Suffern happens to be in the position of having 3 bus companies and 2 rail lines that serve it. I don't know how many cities in the United States have public transportation on that scale. If the village marketed itself as a place to come to work by public transportation, the village wouldn't need to buy land so that people could park here. And it would be no cost to us apart from the marketing. I'm curious to know how much commuter parking returns. If we have to bond $3 million to buy land so that commuters can park, how soon do we get a return? What's the kind of return on that? Is this the business that's profitable in terms of buying land for the village to enter into? I question that. I know that climate change is controversial, but I think that people in Rockland County and other places around the world need to shift from having a car-centric view and look at public transportation. We could have all the people who live on the New Jersey Transit line could be coming here, walking from the train station, working in factories, working in offices. We don't ever suggest this. This is a business that would have people coming on public transportation to work here. No cars, no additional, those people would not be driving here, they wouldn't be parking, they wouldn't be polluting the air, they wouldn't be contributing to climate change. I really think we need to think differently about the issue of parking. If we are overloaded with customers for parking, perhaps we're underpricing our service.
Thank you. Sure.
Patsy, just to clarify one thing, the $3 million, that's gone. In other words, we're not buying.
I'm sorry?
You mentioned that the village, spending $3 million in bonds, but that actually ended on December 16th, that possibility.
But that was the plan, that we were going to lay out money to buy land to create parking.
I just wanted to clarify, that's not.
No, I understand that, yes.
That's all I wanted to say. It's not
Yes,
the current plan.
absolutely.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Are you coming up, Mr. Hunt? Okay.
My name's Joseph Hunt. I have many addresses here in the village. I have two questions. One, we have discussed, Mayor, yourself and I, of doing a rideshare program with the vendors downtown. We need to pursue that to help alleviate some of the stress. Two, if Avon breaks the pilot program, doesn't it go back to natural taxing? Are we missing something here, or am I missing something?
Well, we do hold the pilot agreement in place, and it's a binding document until 2025, and if Avon wishes to break that agreement, there would be a recapture event, yes.
Okay, so
And
let's break the agreement, charge them double. So then we can't sell the property until 2025?
all right, let's have the discussion here, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mandelbaum.
Mayor, since one of the speakers mentioned the concern about traffic, if I may, I'd like to bring up Dr. John Collins, our traffic consultant. He did submit a report to the board, but I think for the benefit of the public, perhaps he could just summarize his findings.
Okay,
Thank
sure.
you very much.
Yes.
As a resident and one that has seen what has gone on in the town of Ramapo, I would suggest that we have our own traffic consultant, not one hired by another entity who's in their best interest to have a favorable study. And just as one more aside to the $3 million parking lot that the village entertained, I would hope that people would understand that our vision was far beyond buying a parking lot for $3 million. It also came with a 30,000 square foot space, and we as a village have multiple properties where we could have had an opportunity to consolidate, put more buildings up for sale and revitalize the village. Plus, the municipal parking that's needed is part of the All Roads Lead to Suffern. We want to be a viable community where homes are available for sale that people want to buy because they can't afford to live in New York City. And they want to come here and they want to be able to park and have a spot to do so. That's why we have to be very careful in the changes that we make within our community, that it benefits the residents, not just one small little part of a commercial tax base.
Very good. Thank you.
For the board, my name is John Collins, and I don't consider myself a hired gun. I consider myself a professional. I've been doing it for 40 years. I've taught graduate, undergraduate, etc. And usually what I say usually comes to fruition. And in fact, I was part when I had my own firm, and I was part of the Avon project when it was initially started back in early 2000. The question about the traffic, etc., and I'm just going to state the facts that are out there. Normally you put commercial facilities on your heavily traveled roadways. Based upon information supplied by the New York State Department of Transportation, Washington Avenue is carrying roughly 7,000 to 8,000 vehicles per day during the weekday, typically. As typical of a major roadway such as this, it gets traffic that peaks primarily during the business hours, which is 8 to 6, in the order of 500 to 600 vehicles per hour coming in both directions. Just a point of comparison, Route 59 carries about 14 to 15,000 vehicles per day. So Washington Avenue is a heavily traveled roadway, and normally you try to put your commercial activity on the busiest roadways as opposed to putting them on residential streets or near
traffic to and from here, be it employees coming to work, which was documented to be about 10 vehicles per day, or the number of trucks, which is best documented to be some 4 or 5 vehicles per day making deliveries, and many of those trucks are already on Route 59. They just divert, pick up the load, and go back to Route 59. So therefore, all I'm stating is the facts based upon the information that's available to the village as well as to the public with respect to the vinyl fence. And with that, I'll be able to answer any other questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Okay, if at this time, if the board so wishes, I will entertain a motion concerning Avon's request to modify and amend its pilot agreement with the village. If there is anyone who wishes to make a motion, please state your motion now. Board? Okay, having called for a motion and not received any interest from a member of the board to make a motion, one way or another, concerning Avon's request to amend the pilot agreement with the village, the board has nothing to take any action on, so we will not have any further discussion, and we will move on with our agenda. To the extent of any board member who wishes to further discuss this matter, it is appropriate to do so at a work session, and please contact my office, and I'll place it on the agenda. Thank you. Okay, let's continue on with the meeting. Mr. Fred Rella, grant writer update, please.
Good evening, Board. I want to talk about 2 items tonight, and they both have to do with the Community Development Block Grant. The first item is about the 2019 Community Development Block Grant. We submitted that application last year, and it was to do new sidewalks, curbs, and driveway aprons on Park Avenue between East Maple and Park Lake. And the Rockland County Office of Community Development said that project was okay, and we were going to be awarded the $100,000 for it. The Community Development Block Grant Program is federal money, and it comes from the HUD, Housing and Urban Development. Every year that we apply for the Community Development Block Grant, it has to be within a low to moderate income area of the village, pursuant to census data and census tracts. So since I've been doing this in the early 2000s, as you know, we do the census every 10 years. We do it in the year 2000, the year 2010, and now we're about to enter into the 2020. When we submit the applications, we're always using the census data from the most current census. When Rockland County proposed our $100,000 project approved to HUD, HUD says we are now going to be using the estimated data that is done annually, such that we are not going to abide by the 2010 numbers. Thus, a census tract was eliminated where Park Avenue no longer qualifies as being low to moderate income. If you're wondering what low to moderate income is for the Village of Suffern, the average household income in Suffern is $86,000. Okay? You then take 80% of the $86,000, which is about $69,000, and 51% of the homes have to be at $69,000 or less in order to be considered low to moderate income. Okay, so that census tract, we have 7 in the Village of Suffern, about 11,000 residents within the Village of Suffern, so about a little less than 2,000 individuals per census tract. So you get the idea that how many people are impacted by this. So Rockland County came to us and said, okay, we're still going to let you have the $100,000. Oh, and by the way, this was not just something which was for Suffern. This was national, so it impacted numerous municipalities throughout the nation, and everyone is dealing with this. So Rockland County said, okay, we're still going to give you the $100,000, but the project now has to be within an approved census tract area. Well, we received an award of $70,250 in 2018 for redoing the parking lot B, which is the parking lot across from the post office. Okay. We have not done that project yet, and that falls within the new designated defined area. The total cost of that project is $250,000. So if we went ahead with it, the village would have to make up for that shortfall. So we got the okay from the Rockland County Office of Community Development that we could take that $100,000 and we could apply it to that project. So now we will have $170,250 towards a $250,000 project, and it will only cost the village an estimated $80,000 now versus $180,000. Okay? So before you tonight, you have a resolution to amend that program to the parking lot B.
So just to speak to that, once again, going back to parking and the grant money, which is going to be hopefully successful here with this resolution in front of us. Once we are able to resurface that parking lot and reconfigure the striping, I believe we're going to gain roughly around anywhere from 15 to 20% in additional parking spaces just on reconfiguring and the different types of striping that we're going to use. So everything that we do consider here is based on economic development, which includes parking. And that just benefits the businesses, the downtown area, the residents, everyone involved. But before you tonight, as Mr. Rella was indicating, is the adoption of the 2019 CDBG grant program modification as he described. You have the resolution in front of you, whereby the village board accepts the modification and changes to the 2019 CDBG project on new sidewalks and curbs, and as the resolution is written. Do I have a motion to adopt this resolution? Trustee Barone. Second, Trustee Alpert. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we're going to deal with the 2020 Community Development Block Grant application. The projects come from the Citizen Advisory Committee, which is made up of a cross-section of residents within the municipality. For example, you have a renter, a homeowner, a senior citizen, a minority, a government worker, a school teacher, and a like, okay? And what we do is we look at the low to moderate income area within the village, and then we try to come up with an appropriate project that would be approved under the CDBG guidelines. And what the committee has come up with this year is to redo the sidewalks, curbs, and driveway aprons on West Maple Avenue, which is in the West Ward. If you're heading down Chestnut Street, if you're heading towards the ball field, you make a left onto Rampo Avenue. It's the second street on the right, okay? We have not done a CDBG project in the West Ward in about 10 years, so this is a great opportunity to do that. Those sidewalks are in slight disrepair. It does encompass 3 blocks, okay, from Rampo Avenue, so it'll be the full length, full 3-block length. And the estimated cost of that project is $200,000. Okay. We're going to be applying for $180,000, and then 10%. The village always contributes a minimum of 10%, so 10% of the 180 is 18, so we're at $198,000. So the application is due April 10th. The application opens up to actually apply on March 20th. So I'm looking for the full support of the board tonight to move forward with that project, and you've got a resolution before you.
We don't have the reso.
Oh. Well, can I ask some questions first? Yeah. So first, what would be the difference between Park Avenue sidewalks and West Maple sidewalks and curbs and aprons?
Park Avenue sidewalk, the estimate was $100,000. And West Maple, $200,000. But the difference is that's just one block. It's significantly longer distance to West Maple Avenue. So it encompasses 3 blocks, whereas the Park Avenue project was 1 block.
Oh, so a bigger bang for the dollar value.
Right.
Okay, I see, okay.
Yeah.
And their income isn't gonna, apparently, their income isn't gonna have a, they're not gonna be told yes and then,
No, because we're using, the most current census estimate from the U.S. Census Bureau.
okay,
Yeah.
because it's a little hard to.
Right, no, we already got the pre-approval from Rockland County on it, we checked with
Okay.
HUD. So,
Are there any other grants that you can give back to see if we can get those sidewalks and curbs and these things done?
Well,
I
every
know
year
a lot of
there's,
people on that street were really
yeah,
looking forward to
there's
that.
CHIPS money, which I guess is about $250,000 a year that the municipality gets. Oh, 125. So, you could look at that as an opportunity to use CHIPS money for sidewalks and curbs. I'll also keep my eyes and ears open for any opportunity.
Fred, were there any other projects that were evaluated in addition to this one in the West Fork?
Yeah, well, as you know, we have the Wayne Avenue sidewalk project, which is to do the sidewalks on the north side of Wayne Avenue, between Orange Avenue and the Thruway Bridge up towards Lake Antrim. So that project's going to be completed this spring. So we were looking at sidewalks now on the south side. And that was a conversation which was done at the table. Then we went out and actually investigated. The sidewalks are in pretty good shape on the south side in the qualifying area from Orange Avenue to Cross Street. So they were in pretty good shape. So we didn't want to do anything there. One thing to note too is that you can't just do, if you have 2 blocks, let's say between Chestnut Street and Cross Street, you can't intermittently just replace certain slabs. You have to do the entire block. So even if a couple slabs are in disrepair and someone had redone 10 slabs the past year, you'd have to tear up everything and redo the entire block. Another opportunity we looked at was lighting downtown to increase the visibility and to do some streetscaping. One problem with that was that Rockland County has only given us about 30 days to hold 2 citizen advisory committees to find what the projects are, get cost estimates and the like. They put this undue onus upon municipalities when in prior years we've had like 5 to 6 months to do this, which is ample time for planning and through investigation. So those are a couple of projects. Sidewalks, these really are in disrepair. If you take a drive down there, you'll see the curbs, sometimes they're missing, sometimes they're 2 inches high, sometimes they're 4 inches high, crumbled, everything.
Okay, thanks.
So the resolution for the Village of Suffern accept the CBDG 2020 block grant program in the amount of, Fred, what was the amount? $198,000. $198,000 for the West Ward project on West Maple Avenue from
Ramapo Avenue, headed west all the way to the end.
Do I have a motion? Oh, go ahead. Not the sidewalks, but that's a good question. Did they do any gas main replacement? No, I don't know.
No, yeah, I've been down there several times.
Charles, did they do gas main replacement on West, what is it, Maltby? I'm sorry. Maple.
So where was the work done that was done like 2 years ago, a year ago?
Ramapo.
That was not,
Oh, the curb. You're saying the curb.
I do want to mention that as you go down.
You're saying the curb?
I thought the curbs were done just recently when they did the gas line. My husband works on the project, so.
But not on Maple.
Yeah,
I thought you were doing the whole block, I thought you were doing all 3. No, okay. No, you did Fred.
Fred, no, only on West Maple, curbs and sidewalks, but
I just want to make you aware that as you're going down Ramsdale Avenue, West Maple goes towards the train tracks, and it also goes westward. Okay, it goes westward for 3 blocks and towards the train tracks, it's only like 25 yards. There are no sidewalks per driveway.
Right, on that side.
It's also where the Vincent Karate building is, and that takes up 90% of that side of the street, and the parking lot goes directly into the road. So there's
No curb, yeah.
And if you wanted to put sidewalks and curbs on the other side, then you might run into a main issue, because the front lines are very small. I'm not sure where the lines are, but they might be a big.
But just to make it more clear.
I thought he was doing part, I thought part of it was Brown.
Okay.
Oh, no.
But my,
My mistake was, so I'm
so my question really is to Charles, did O&R encroach onto West Maple where we intend to do the curbs and sidewalks at all? Okay, but none of that new gas main replacement that was going on, okay. Okay, so do I have a motion to that? Any further, oh geez, go ahead, take it. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rella. Okay, next I'd like to open up to audience participation. Anyone from the audience that would like to speak, please come up, state your name and address.
Catherine from 87 Sussex. For the heavy discussion about parking and so forth, besides the Avon that we discussed tonight, what other businesses are moving into the community that will require ample parking as well? I remember the previous monthly meeting, there was somebody else that raised a concern in the audience about that. I think there were other businesses, not just Avon, that was considering that needed parking for their business and so forth. There were other businesses in the area, the condos that we have downtown Suffern, and then there was another business, the audience member, I don't recall it, I apologize, mentioned that there were other businesses moving into the Suffern. Someone spoke on it, and I wanted to just get some more color on that. If he's not able to answer it, it's fine, because
Well, with the additional, I mean, there's two separate issues. So the overall growth and economic development trend that the village is looking at, take Avon out of the mix.
No, I agree. That's
Right.
why I'm questioning. That was one proposal. I'm just wondering if there's been an approach of anything else to the board, or if there's any other activity that's going on.
No, it's just an interest that there are investors that are interested in coming into the Village of Suffern. There are people that drive into the Village of Suffern to commute. There are people that come here just to use the restaurants, to frequent the businesses. But in general, overall, the shortage of parking is critical. So, yeah. And well, yeah, with the two new planned buildings, but they're providing parking for themselves, you know, the Muse, the Washington Muse, and then the... Yes.
I know, because I was going to do a condo, you get one for parking, and then, you want to have guests, I'm just wondering.
So that's even critical to the planning board, and Mr. Giannattino was here before, that when they do present to the planning board, parking is heavily considered. In the years past, they used to waive parking for businesses to come into the village. So now after all of that waiving of the parking requirement, now we're finding ourselves in a backlog of parking, which we really have to analyze and regulate accordingly. No, that's fine, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak?
Aramis Moores, 72 Lonergan. the houses that have come down on Lonergan, is there any way to turn that into a parking lot, or is it no building?
That is one of the uses that the state will allow to utilize that, but we cannot cover it with asphalt or macadam. We have to leave it natural drainage. But though that is an option that we're also looking at, mostly for the residents of that area. There were there are few options that we can use those properties for, and we didn't obtain title to them yet. We didn't acquire title, so the state still has it, and the state is looking to close on them probably by the end of this year and transfer title to the Village of Suffern. And then we'll be able to determine the best use for the residents down in Lonergan Drive. Thank you.
Again, I just want to reinitiate our months ago conversation by trying to get ride sharing with business owners downtown. Again, I think until we resolve issues of putting a parking lot high-rise, we really need to look at that. So if we can, because you're looking at all the Uber drivers, all these taxi drivers, bringing people in, maybe if we can get some of the bigger multi-employee businesses to think about that, or make an incentive, give them a discount on parking if they do ride share and improve it, to bring 4 cars in instead of 6. It's something to really look at.
I think that's a good point.
We discussed it.
If we could talk about the ride share, as we discussed, that if we're able to get, first of all, it's very challenging anyway to get the merchants off the street.
Yes.
Now we're going to have to get them
to
ride share, as you know. That's the issue. I know years ago the county did have a program and an incentive. I think it was called ride share. I don't know what happened to it. It's no longer, but that's, for the permit parking would be beneficial if we could do something like that.
Yes, and then just repaving, expanding the property line, and changing
The striping
slots,
configuration.
The striping, reconfiguring is going to be a big thing. We have discussed that a year and a half ago. I know it's funds and time, and it's got to happen. It really has to happen.
Well, with your input and help, Joe, we always make things happen.
We're looking at blacktopping the whole baseball field from fence to fence to give you a little bit more on the amp lot during the day. It's just at the short timers. We're always here to help to alleviate some of the stress on the village. Again, it's got to be pushed forward. This board has to work together on that, so that way we can resolve this issue and bring people into all roads lead to Suffern.
There you go. Thank you, Joe. Anyone else? Okay. Fire Department, I see Chief Ortiz here. How you doing, Chief? Chief of the Fire Department.
Doing well. How about everyone else?
We're doing good.
Watch out. I think that lawyer's waiting for you guys in the parking lot.
What did he say?
I think the lawyer's waiting for you outside. He seems very upset. So I think on the agenda, you want to talk about it, or do you want me to talk about it?
You can talk about it.
All right, well, we need to authorize Dan McInerney to post the preliminary report for the LoSAP program for 2019.
Okay, so we have the resolution approving the Suffern Fire Department Service Award Program Report, whereas is this the right one? Okay, in accordance with the New York General Municipal Law, Section 217, general requirements of the Service Award Program, Daniel McInerney, Suffern Fire Department, LoSAP Administrator, prepared a preliminary report detailing the service award points earned by the members of the Suffern Fire Department for 2019. And be it further resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the 2019 Fire Department Service Award Program preliminary report presented by Mr. McInerney. Be it further resolved, for a period of no less than 30 days commencing March 2nd, 2020, the Suffern Fire Department LoSAP administration will cause to be conspicuously posted a copy of the preliminary report at each Village of Suffern firehouse, during which time a firefighter may file a written appeal to the service point information contained in the report to the fire department. Be it further resolved, appeals not satisfactorily resolved by the Village of Suffern Fire Department during this posting period must be submitted to the village board for investigation and review. Be it further resolved, if no appeals are filed during the posting period, the mayor is authorized to sign the Village of Suffern Fire Department Service Award Program 2019 Final Report Sponsor Authorization Form. Do I have a motion? Trustee Barone, Trustee Corrigan, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, everybody. And then next, we just want to get some authorization to send some people to the New York State Fire Convention on June 12th to 13th.
Okay, so I have authorization to authorizing the Suffern Fire Chief to attend the New York State Fire Chiefs Association Convention June 11th through 12, 2020. Village Board adopted Resolution 27 of 2015 authorizing attendance at municipal conferences with prior approval by the board. Now therefore be it resolved, the Village Board hereby authorizes the Suffern Fire Chief to attend the New York State Association of Fire Chiefs Annual Convention June 11th and 12th in Syracuse, New York, and be it further resolved that the Village of Suffern will pay for or reimburse the Suffern Fire Chief for all actual reasonable and necessary registration meals and travel expenses associated with attendance at this event. I have a motion.
Second.
Trustee Barone, Trustee Corrigan, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. And one last thing that's not on the agenda, Chief Lepori.
Oh, it's not on the agenda?
Chief Lepori just asked me if are we anywhere on the Allendale mutual aid agreement?
I'll have to follow up with him on that tomorrow.
Okay, he asked me to ask.
Okay.
We have not, but we will.
That's what I had asked him to do, and then we're gonna come together, based on the changes that you had, and the original wording, we will work together as a team to modify them, and then bring it forward to the
Okay. Yeah, we still need to meet up and talk about it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Fire Chief. Kathy Mills, Culture and Recreation.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Village Board. So a few things that we have coming up. Recreation's been at a little low. We have a little bit low every season, every year, and our lull is now over, so we are going to be busy for a while. So tomorrow morning, March 3rd, we have a nutrition workshop. That's at 10:30. We have a nutritionist from ShopRite presenting, and that will be at 10:30 in the community room. March 2nd, which is this evening, March 9th, March 16th, and March 30th, we have evening yoga over at the community center at 6:30 p.m. March 3rd, which is tomorrow night, we have Narcan training. Mayor Markunas, we've sent out a nice release. We've gotten a lot of feedback, great feedback from
Thank
people
you.
for that. So we look forward to having that here in the auditorium tomorrow at 6 p.m. March 4th, which is Wednesday, Clifford Theater, we are going to reveal to the students what the show will be for 2020. We put it on the school's backpack, and we've gotten it out to all the previous students, so we're looking forward to getting some the kids in here on Wednesday at 5 p.m. This Friday, my apologies, will be March 6th, will be Lead. We'll be over at the community center at 7 p.m. March 7th, that's also that's Saturday. Steam Expo will be over at the high school, and the Suffern Fire Department will be there with a truck. So if anyone is around on Saturday, Steam will be presenting at the high school. And it's always a nice event for the community. You see a lot of different families up there, learn what our schools are presenting to the kids. It's a great day. So 11 to 3, the Suffern Fire Department will have a truck up there. March 11th, we have cardio with Debbie over at the community center at 11. March 13th is the next dare dance at 7 to 9 over at the community center.
March 14th, we have sold out of Frozen on Broadway, so no tickets are available. We have 56 people going down to Broadway at 2 p.m. On March 14th. March 25th, Elaine from Recreation will be having arts and crafts over at the center. Elaine, you want to talk about it? March 25th, that evening at 7 p.m., we have a nutrition workshop, and we're working with Good Samaritan Hospital. They're bringing their chef and a nutritionist in, and they will be doing a presentation on nutrition, so we're looking forward to that. March 28th, with Bruce from the Foundation, Joe from CSEA, and village employees, we'll be doing Not Just Battery Saturday here at Village Hall. For those of you that attended last time, it was a tremendous success. You meet people, greet people in the parking lot outside, take the material, people drive away very happy. It's a great event. So, Mayor and the board, I think it's fantastic that you're offering that to the community. It saves people a trip up to Pomona, and it's kind of spring cleaning in the best way. So, we have flyers about the materials that can be accepted. One thing I wanted to note, no tires are accepted for this one.
No tires.
No tires.
No tires. Oh.
Joe says no tires.
There's no tires, as per Bruce there. So we're looking forward to that event. April 4th is a Saturday. That will be egg hunt and bagels with the bunny. That's at 11 o'clock outside at the gazebo, and then inside at the community center with photos with the bunny. We're lucky in that event that we get donations from local community stores and things, and we get some great products to be able to give out to people. People take their cameras, they take pictures. It's a really nice event for the afternoon. April 4th, that same morning, is Suffern Little League Opening Day Parade and Ceremony. That will be at 9 a.m. So if you're around on the 4th, it'll be a fun-filled day here in the Village of Suffern. The board is always invited down to events like that. The Little League, the parade leaves from here, goes down Lafayette and goes to the fields. And then April 25th, Keep Rockin' Beautiful will be at the community center from 9 to 12. I've talked to the fire department. They're looking forward to participating. We have village groups. We've got a lot of different groups. The school, the environmental club that presented here, they're going to get a team. They're excited to be part of Keep Rockin' Beautiful. So we've gotten the word out. Registration has begun for Keep Rockin' Beautiful on the website. So if anyone's interested in getting a team together, you register on there, and then I reach out about locations. So we're really looking forward to Keep Rockin' Beautiful. In the county, we're one of the biggest communities that participate. We have, with all the different groups, we have about 150 to 200 people participate. So that's a really great event for the community. So we're looking forward to that. Now, the discussion for Clifford Theater, I explained at the workshop, the amount that I was asking for was just for one portion of the amount needed. There is no dollar amount change or difference from last year's, so the total amount is there for you. It's if I can have that amended to approve that amount, then we can go ahead with securing the rights.
So I have the resolution authorizing Kathy Mills to purchase the rights to the Clifford Theater summer production. That's what we're talking about.
Correct.
Right. So I have resolution 26 of 2020 authorizing Kathy Mills to purchase the rights to Clifford Theater summer production is hereby amended to reflect that the total cost to purchase the rights for the theater program is in the amount of $1,355. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Yeah, that was like a tie. All right. Second? Trustee Barone is second. Yes, Trustee Girard. Sorry. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, thank you. And again, we're going to announce the show on Wednesday night here at 5 p.m. The next is RP Connor has requested complimentary pool pass for their May 1st Tricky Tray event. We have done this in the past. The comparable amount would be for 2 adults, 2 children, and a family, which would be dollar amount would be $290. They raffle it off. It is open to only Village of Suffern residents, so the winner has to be a Village of Suffern resident. It couldn't be somebody outside the community. It would have to be somebody that has an address in Suffern that could win the pass.
The resolution authorizing Kathy Mills to provide 2 pool passes to RP Connor PTA for use in the May 1st, 2020 fundraiser. Do I have a motion? Trustee Corrigan, do I have a second? Trustee Alpert, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next is on April 27th. There will be a training conference in Westchester. I'm requesting attendance for myself, for Nancy Christopher, and Elena Casella to attend the Recreation and Park Society Visions 2020 Conference for 3 registration fees.
To have the resolution authorizing Kathy Mills, Nancy Christopher, and Elaine DeFalco to attend New York State Recreation and Park Society Annual Conference, April 27, 2020 in Westchester County at a cost of $185 per participant for a 1-day program. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? Hold on. All in favor? Aye, motion passes.
And that's it for me. The street fair, I believe, is on the mayor's agenda. I can speak of it, but Mayor, if you want to wait to...
Yeah, we can wait.
Okay.
The veterans gathering the other day up in, that was very good. We had
It was.
there's at least a dozen, I would say, dozen veterans.
At least, yeah, it was.
Right.
It was really nice. They enjoyed being, for anyone that's, that doesn't know, we had Bridges, which is a veterans, is it veterans?
Yep, it's all veterans organization, bridging the gap between veterans and military to civilian life. And we had a great, Sharon Bailey leads the unit. And we had about a dozen veterans there. It was great.
They really enjoyed the community room, so it was an
Yeah.
asset to have upstairs, yes.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Police Department Chief Osborne.
Just a couple quick things tonight. I must apologize. We've had a busy couple months. I did not actually mark down the exact number of calls we had, which is to give you for February. We're about 800. We're about 800 this past month, which is obviously a short month, so we definitely had a busy month. Just a couple things on the agenda. The first is the discussion on the data sharing agreement with Carfax. I spoke to you guys at the workshop. And just to give a quick overview again, in case you missed it, I just want to refresh a little bit. Carfax is a free investigative service. We will have access to over 21 billion pieces of police evidence. We'll be able to run partial plate searches through Carfax. We will also be able to have Carfax do accident reports where people can download it from their house and pay instead of come to the police station, which I think it's definitely time to do that. This day and age, there is no cost to the village at all, zero. The only thing we would have to do, we're required to do, is get Carfax access to accident reports a little quicker. They get them anyway from the Department of Motor Vehicle, it's authorized. They would get them from us a little quicker. 7 departments out of the 10 of Rockland County already use this, and 175 police departments in New York State use it. So I'm just asking for permission for, to be able to go to Carfax.
So the resolution authorizing the Village of Suffern Police Department to participate in the Carfax for Police Data Sharing Program. Do I have a motion? Trustee Alpert, do I have a second? Trustee Barone, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Board. Secondly, I'm requesting to send Detective Sergeant Rick Marsh to the New York State SWAT Tactical Officer Conference in Barone, New York, April 21st to 24th, excuse me, at no cost to the village. As I explained at the workshop, we are part of a 7-team SWAT team, a 7-department SWAT team here in Rockland County. Detective Sergeant Rick Marsh is a team leader. We have 2 teams, a red team, a blue team, and we have a hostage negotiator team. Rick is in charge of one of those teams. My job on behalf of the chiefs, I am the chief's oversight chairman of the county SWAT team and operations, which I handle. And we're asking for authorization to send him to this training, which he goes every year to keep up on SWAT tactics in Verona. And once again, no cost, everything is paid for by the county.
Okay, I have the resolution authorizing Detective Sergeant Marsh to attend New York State SWAT Tactical Officers Association Seminar, April 21st through 24th, 2020, in Verona, New York. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Trustee Girard, I'm sorry. Do I have a second? Trustee Barone, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Board. The third thing is authorization to enter into an agreement with AAR Auctions to auction property deemed nuisance property under New York State property law, which has been basically due to our lengthy evidence purge. It's authorized by state law. And we're
Sorry.
just asking the board to approve.
I have the resolution authorizing the Village of Suffern Police Department to dispose of property deemed nuisance property by the use of the auction services provided by AAR Auction Services. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Trustee Barone, do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Girard, any further discussion?
I just have one question. So this nuisance property, in all cases, let's say original owner or whatever, we made an attempt.
Oh, yeah. Steve, under the law, Steve, that's what took us so long. Under the law, we send them a letter. We even went so far. We have a investigative service that we use. The LexisNexis is called. And we go in and we basically can run anybody for investigation. Probably just couldn't do it for no reason. Find out where the last credit card was used. Just things we can find out to track them down if needed for a criminal case. So we went so far just to track these people down to use this service. And most of them we were able to contact just turned it over to us. Signed a form or just said we don't want it. And every single piece of evidence is documented when it came. So it worked out very well. It just took a long time to get.
Great.
Is there any evidence that ever has value to the village?
That we could use, Steve, probably not. Probably not. It's definitely worth stuff, but it wouldn't be probably useful for the village to auction off. Hold on.
But the revenue will be useful to the village and the police department.
The revenue, yeah, I could use
Right.
some upgrades downstairs. That's what I plan on using it.
Right.
Need some work. My floors, it's you're down here, you see it.
Yeah.
The floors, the
Perfect.
wall, we need
I think it's a great way to dispose of the property. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Great, thank you, guys, thank you very much. Next, authorization to report Robert Conklin as parking enforcement aide, part-time, effective, I guess today, March 2nd.
So the resolution appointing Robert Conklin as part-time, parking enforcement aide, part-time, at a rate of $15 per hour. Do I have a motion? Trustee Barone, do I have a second? Trustee Corrigan, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much, Mayor Moore. And lastly, authorization to hold a public hearing on April 6, 2020 at 7 p.m. to consider amendments to Chapter 254 of the Code of the Village of Suffern entitled Vehicles and Traffic to define and regulate towing services and the obtainment of towing service providers. Just to give a quick update, I know we spoke about it at the workshop a little bit late. I just need to update all of our towing policies, how to get on the list, insurance to provide, how do we take them off, all of these things regulated. It just has to be updated. It's taken a little while to do it, and I think we're ready to go forward with it. Something that basically protects the village, protects all of us.
Okay, I have the resolution authorizing a public hearing to be held April 6th, 2020 to consider amendments to Chapter 254 of the Code of the Village of Suffern to define and regulate towing services so the public hearing will start at 7:10 p.m. Do I have a motion? Trustee Corrigan, do I have a second? Trustee Barone, any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor Board. And Mayor, just real quickly, if it's possible, one more thing. I just received it's an invitation, it was an application to go to a course myself. It's called Social Media Academy for Police Departments in Westchester County, March 16th and 17th. It's not expensive. I have plenty of money in my budget on the training to go.
Hold on a minute. You want to go to the Social Media Academy?
Something due to the fact that I run so many pages, really private. I've actually set up multiple police departments throughout the region. As a courtesy, I do it. I help them on their pages and just give them advice, different things. So I think this is for professionals who teach this stuff in our law enforcement, and just to know basically the trends, what to put on, what not to put on. I think it's good for me to keep a refresher, to due to the fact I'm running several pages, I think, for the village, it would definitely help all of us. And I really
So
don't
what's,
see-
that's fine, what's the date?
March 16th and 17th.
3/16.
It's in Westchester County.
17th.
It's just, I have plenty of money in my, it's not expensive for us. I just want, and I would have brought up the workshop, but I just got it today.
Social Media
Media Academy.
I have a motion to authorize Chief Osborne to attend the Social Media Academy 3/16 and 17 in Westchester County. Do I have a motion? Trustee Corrigan, do I have a second? Trustee Girard, any further? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, Mayor Boone. I must apologize. I never do that for something like that, but I literally just got and get a chance to talk to any of you. Got it late this afternoon. Just a quick update. I know most of us know we had a very sizable narcotics arrest after a lengthy investigation of some operations that took place on Prairie Avenue. This incident took place, the investigation, I should say, took place for about 2 months. The arrest took place back in February. We had a SWAT team enter a residence on Prairie Avenue at 6 a.m. We entered the residence. The reason we used the SWAT team was the person, the target of the investigation. We determined the one person we knew was a 6-time convicted felon on weapons charges, narcotics, major narcotics dealing, second floor apartment, very down the street. Anytime you're at the residence in the second floor, the SWAT team, I know it's very dangerous where the stairs went up and the apartment was situated. We did it at 6 a.m., located the subject in the hallway at that time when it was coming up. Had cameras all over the house, outside the house, inside. Got it, took him into custody. Were able to obtain a very large amount of heroin, $57,000 in cash, which will be seized. Obviously, we will get a good proceed of that with the district attorney's office. And we also seized weapons, including a stolen handgun, Glock-loaded handgun, out of Haverstraw. So it's probably one of the biggest hits we ever had here in the village. The money, the drugs, and this person is still married. Mayor, you and I spoke the other day about it. This guy, fortunately, did not fall into bail reform because he was a 6-time convicted felon. I confirmed Friday he is still in the county jail at this time.
Oh, he is.
Facing a very lengthy prison sentence in state prison due to his past and due to the multiple charges we have upon him. We did the case, and I really want to commend our DA Tom Walsh and the Rockland County Narcotics Task Force for working with us and our SWAT team to basically take this person off the streets. We were finding, and residents are finding needles in the streets out there. When we hit the place at 6 a.m., we used some police tactics, a concussion grenade, which is very loud, explosive. And it's unfortunate that whole neighborhood heard it, woke up. There were kids and families, great families. It's a great working community over there. These kids were in this neighborhood with these drug dealers. And as we were there, and I know you pulled up there that morning, people were coming out just giving us thumbs up and just wait because they knew what was going on, but they were scared to. They just didn't know what to do. So to get this person out of the village, get this stuff off the street was priceless. So I just want to thank you all for your support. I know I spoke to many of you about it, and this was a good arrest. And my Detective Bureau, Rick Marsh, and colleague Craig Long and Angie York helped out, did a phenomenal job with this.
They sure did, and I was there. I rode up. I came up on the scene in the morning, but I stayed afterwards, and the residents were very thankful and grateful for what the department has done in that area. So,
Thank you.
great job. Thank you.
And I appreciate it. And just the Ring Doorbell, we are now part of the Ring Doorbell program. We work with Ring if we have an incident, say like on a missing person case. We go up there, investigate it. We can now get access to Ring cameras. Ring will contact the people in that area for us, who will then decide if they want to turn over the information to us. We went through the Knolls, just to give you a piece of information. When we had the missing person case back in January, Wilson Acts, there were 63 Ring doorbells in the Knolls. We never knew were there. Now we know. So now we're working with Ring to work with this, and we're also looking to start a community camera program with Queens. We'll be working with residents. I spoke to speak at Allendale Fire Department. I'm very friendly with a lot of officers in Allendale PD. I'm very friendly with most of the departments in Northern Jersey. I work with the departments on different things. Allendale provided us a form that they use to send out to the community if you have a camera on your residence, to let us know, and if we have an incident in that neighborhood, would you be willing to share that data with us? We're going to be rolling that out very soon as well. So it's been And I apologize for taking so much time, but we have had a very, very busy 2 months past year, probably 2 of the busiest months I've ever had in my career here, with just arrests and incidents and just plain out calls. So I just appreciate support, and I'll be...
Keep it up. Keep up the great work.
I have a question, Chief.
One question, Chief.
I have a quick question. So, obviously, the arrest on Ferry, was a big investigation that went through. Great job. I was just curious if any of the local residents were, had filed reports or were aware of what was going on in their neighborhood, or if this came as a total surprise.
Steve, they weren't. Steve, this actually started, one of the ways it started, I had a resident mention to me at their hockey that I'm concerned with what's going on Prairie Avenue. I know you spent time up there with your son Steve with us. And then from there, we received a couple more, then we got phone calls. And I always said to people, that's how important it is to work with us, and that's why that pays up a working relationship with the community.
Glad to hear it, this community involved.
Oh, totally, Steve. And I know I mentioned at the workshop, and I apologize not stressing that today. That was a big part of this investigation.
Actually, I heard both. They knew something was going on, and then I had residents actually say, oh, I thought something was going on, and that's when I tell them, if you see something, say something, call the police. We have to urge every resident out there, if you see something going on, make sure you make that notification, call the police department.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had the 2 major areas, we had 2 residents, one on Wayne Ave last year, and then this one. Due to neighbor complaints is how we started the investigation, and they were probably 2 of the bigger drug houses we've hit. So hopefully, we're just going to continue that trend. If the word come in and set up, we will take care of it. We'll get rid of it. So
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll return. How's that? Stretch your legs. It's like the 7th inning stretch. Okay, welcome back. Mr. Zawicki.
All right, good evening. I am requesting authorization to approve a professional service agreement with Pittengarrow and Deutsch Consulting Engineers for the design review and construction oversight of the remaining DEC required sanitary sewer replacement on Washington Avenue and Pleasant Avenue in the amount of $10,800.
Oh, jeez. Okay, authorizing acceptance of the professional service request proposal from Pittengarrow and Deutsch for design, review, and construction oversight for the sanitary sewer project on Washington Avenue and Pleasant Avenue. Do I have a motion? Trustee Alpert, second by Trustee Barone. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right.
I am requesting authorization for Mr. Joe Hunt, Mr. Bill Barish to attend the Peer Leader Training Refresher Course on March 17th through March 19th in Saratoga Springs, New York, at no cost to the village.
The resolution authorizing Joseph Hunt and William Barish to attend CSEA Conference for Peer Leader Training March 17th through 19th, 2020 in Saratoga Springs, New York. Do I have a motion? Trustee Corrigan, do I have a second? Trustee Barone, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I am requesting authorization for Mr. Aramis Morris to attend the Grade 4 Management course on March 30th through April 1st, 2020. This course is offered by Environmental Training Center located in Mooresville, New York. Mr. Morris will be credited with 18 continuing education credits towards his wastewater treatment plant 2A license. The cost of this course is $450 plus hotel, meals, and transportation.
Another resolution authorizing Aramis Morris to attend the Grade 4 Management course in Morrisville, New York, March 30th to April 1st. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Trustee Corrigan, do I have a second? Trustee Barone, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Janito.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor and Board.
Good evening.
We have a number of resolutions. The first is amending the 2019-20 budget, that's the current budget, for the CSEA contract settlement. Total amount is $173,350. That's $173,350, with $56,174 to come from the appropriated fund balance of the general fund to pay for the past years, and the rest of it coming from the contingent funds in respective general fund, water fund, and sewer fund.
So the resolution amending the 2019-2020 budget for CSEA contract settlement. Do I have a motion? Trustee Barone, do I have a second? Trustee Alpert, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
The second resolution is amending the 2019-20 budget for tax certiorari. And as in the past several years, we budgeted $70,000. This year, we have a total of $85,000. So we're asking to transfer $15,000 from the contingent account in the general fund to the tax certiorari account.
To the resolution amending 2019-2020 budget for tax certiorari. Do I have a motion? Trustee Barone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Girard. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
The third resolution, Mayor, I'd actually like to pull from the agenda. It was to amend the budget for legal services. At this time, we're not in excess of the amount of funding for legal services, but with probably next month with additional bills, we may be. So I'll hold that off until a future month.
Okay.
The next resolution is authorizing myself as village treasurer to execute a contract with Berard Associates for auditing services. As you know, they had a 3-year contract with us, which expires with the audit of fiscal year ending 2019. They have within the contract at the village's option to extend that an additional 2 years for the fiscal years ending 2020 and 2021. They've offered a fair price of $32,500, which is slightly above the price that they charged for the other 3 years. So we're asking that this be approved and authorize me to sign a contract for that.
So the resolution authorizing accepting proposal for auditing services. Do I have a motion? Trustee Barone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Corrigan, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
The next resolution is to declare certain computer equipment as surplus. This equipment is no longer viable technologically. We've removed the hard drives, and they will either be destroyed or repurposed within the village itself. That is the operations of the village.
So the resolution to declare certain computer equipment as surplus. Do I have a motion? Trustee Alpert, do I have a second? Trustee Barone, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next resolution is to amend resolution number 20 of 2020. That was the resolution last month that the village board authorized the purchase of the fire truck. In the resolution, it mentioned that they would be purchasing it from Hudson Valley Fire Equipment. And actually, the contract is with Seagrave, even though Hudson Valley Fire Equipment is the dealer. The other part of it is that it's purchased under the government procurement contract with HGAC. And so we just want to make it clear that the dealer is Hudson Valley Fire Equipment, the manufacturer is Seagrave, and that's who the contract is with. The contracted price was arranged through the contract for the consortium HGAC.
So I have the resolution amending Resolution 20 of 2020 adopted February 3rd, 2020, authorizing the purchase of a Seagrave Capital Custom Stainless Steel Pumper. Do I have a motion? Trustee Corrigan, do I have a second? Trustee Barone, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the final resolution before you is authorizing a public hearing to consider the 2021 fiscal year tentative budget. That public hearing to be held on April 6th. That's our regular village board meeting, April 6th, 2020, at 7:15 p.m.
So the resolution authorizing a public hearing to be held April 6, 2020 to consider the 2020-2021 tentative budget. Do I have a motion? Trustee Alpert, do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Barone, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees.
I have some question. I saw Mr. Klein before the meeting, and I asked him if it's made essentially working for the village. He said yes. So I wanted to inquire by what resolution of the board has any authorization been made to continue doing beyond the December 31st ending contract.
Yes, I believe Mr. Klein will speak to those points.
Two things. Number one, you read the decision from the court, I take it. The court specifically granted the motion, and the motion provided that we would continue as village attorney pending the disposition of the proceeding. Proceeding has not been disposed of as of yet, so by order of the court, we are still village attorney. Secondly, I think you raised the issue last time. The mayor appointed us to represent him under his authority. And I think you have the case. If not, I can get it for you. The authority that he has to commence an action when when the trustees are violating the law. And that's what he did. So you have two reasons why I'm still here.
So if you're being paid, how can you do that?
Out of respect, I'm not trying to rub it in anybody's face that we're still village attorney and you don't want us to do it. But I still communicate with the mayor. People in my office communicate with the mayor. You were here for the Avon part. The mayor is able to do some of what he did tonight. Other is based on the advice he got from attorneys in my office. So we're still in communication. I've emailed you. I've indicated to you if you have any questions, contact me. So, does that answer the question? Sure.
Are there any other questions from the board? Okay. Sure. Oh, yeah, Dan, I'm sorry.
I went to the NICOM meeting, and one of many things that were presented to me was a section of cybersecurity. And it brought to my attention that some villages get hacked, and their information is held for ransom. And Homeland Security offers a free audit where someone will come into the village at no charge to the village and look over our cybersecurity and make sure that it's accurate. I called them and asked, could they come and
Perform the audit.
would that be something that
Sure, I know Mr. Janito handles a lot of the IT stuff, but is that I mean, it sounds like a great recommendation to check on our cybersecurity, and if Homeland Security's office is an analysis.
Certainly, it's always good to have an extra eye or ear around, especially, it's a service that they offer to local government. What we do right now for cybersecurity, we have a few things that are going on. One of them is that we have endpoint security with Malwarebytes, which provides security on a level of anything coming in through the internet, somebody plugging in a CD or, flash drive onto the computer, that sort of thing. We have Windows 10 with the latest updates for whatever security that provides. In addition to that, we use pins to get in, meaning that you have to be sitting at that computer knowing the pin to get into it. The other thing that we do, we have Office 365, the government level Office 365 from Microsoft, which provides for all of the Microsoft desktop suites that we have, as well as our email, which is Exchange, at the government security level that is required of the federal government and the state governments, so that, as well as retention and so forth. So while I can't say, and anybody couldn't say that you're perfectly protected, we're pretty well protected in what we have. But again, an audit is always a great thing to have, to see if there's some additional loopholes we should close, or openings that are out there.
So I'll coordinate with you, contact them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, send me the information, we'll contact them.
Okay. Anything else? Ms. Corrigan? Okay. Good? Okay. So I have the resolution here, a resolution approving the Suffern Chamber of Commerce Spring and Fall 2020 street fairs to be held on April 19th, 2020 and September 20th, 2020 from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. along with the use of John Suffern Park as a location for musical entertainment. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Trustee Girard, second by Trustee Corrigan. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have a resolution here for first responders, EMS Discovery. So I have a resolution here for first responders, excluding them from the criminal justice reform discovery, whereas the current New York State bail reform and discovery reform laws do not provide privacy protection to all first responders that would have personal information released to criminals. And whereas such lack of protection to first responders may pose a threat and danger to first responders and their families. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Suffern Board is opposed to the distribution of personal information pertaining to first responders. Do I have a motion? Trustee Corrigan. Do I have a second? Trustee Barone. And on the discussion? Go ahead.
Based on, I know that the law, that the state to evaluate some parameters and so forth and so on, but let's say they don't make any changes to this, would any kind of change like this for Suffern be legal from the state?
This, I can't answer that question, but this resolution is showing opposition to our state elected officials and the governor, which we did in the past for all criminal justice and bail reform. This is the same approach that we're taking to apply pressure to our state elected officials to make those revisions. And we actually met with Senator Carlucci's office to discuss these issues at hand too. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So D is We'll strike D. Or should, unless there is any other discussion to be had or seek legal advice for executive session. No, I'm asking if the board would like to have an executive session in relation to proposed sale of real property. No. Okay. And now E. You agree? See? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let's go back to C. Request to hold a special meeting of the Village Board of Trustees to be held Monday, March 9th, 2020, to discuss the payment of attorneys' invoices, special counsel for the months of December 2019 and January 2020. I know the email was circulated that we had to cancel for this evening, and now we would like to reschedule for March 9th at 7 p.m. Is that correct? Okay, do I have a motion? Trustee Barone, do I have a second? Trustee Alpert, any further discussion?
Is there a February invoice?
No, not that I know of. Not at this time.
Not at this time, but are we expecting one?
I believe so.
So, are we gonna have a separate discussion on a separate invoice, or do?
Whatever the board so chooses, if you want to discuss December and January, or even just try to come to some resolution within that discussion, we can do that and try to move forward. But if there is a February invoice that's coming, we will have to address that also.
I would-
It's a good question. 30 days. Thirty days. Before Monday, March 9th meeting.
So then maybe if you can get it by Monday, that gives us a little bit of time to review it. Maybe we should do the meeting on Wednesday.
Monday's Thursday. No, I mean, not Mondays in general, that Monday.
Monday, March 9th works for me also. I don't see any problem with analyzing or reviewing the,
By Friday.
excuse me?
Okay, thank you. Fair enough, thank you.
Okay, so let's, okay, so do I have a motion to hold the meeting March 9th at 7 p.m. at 2020? Special, request to hold a special meeting of the Village Board of Trustees to be held on Monday, March 9th, 2020, 7 p.m. to discuss payment of attorneys' invoices, special counsel for the months of December and January and most likely February. Do I have a motion? Trustee Barone, do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Girard, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Yes. If this board so wishes. So, On request to hold an executive session this evening to discuss personnel matters, would the board prefer to have that meeting on March 9th instead of this evening? Okay, good. Okay. Steve? You good with that? Okay. Okay, so we're going to strike the executive session for this evening, and we're going to include it. Yes, I did, no, I said 7:10, but let's make it 7:15. Board, is that, because we have the other public hearings, we have a 7:05, a 7:10, this should be 7:15.
You have other public hearings on the 9th?
Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. Make it 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, yeah.
Sorry.
And it's not even midnight.
Hey, easy.
You know? Yeah, no,
We could stay here.
and you're fumbling.
Any further business from anyone? Motion to close. Trustee Corrigan, second. Trustee Barone, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much.